All right, guys, I'm going to try and riff on a solo one today, even though I'm supposed to have a guest. So just give you a little grace as I'll be going back and forth between some notes of something that I was trying to think about percolating and that sort of thing. As the new year came about, I've been thinking about like how 2025 really brought me to my fucking knees. There were so many different initiations, so much grief, so many challenges, but it really did end with like a little glimmer and like finding like the silver lining of the cloud. And, um, I was chatting with a girlfriend not too long ago, over brunch with my grandma's plates, because my grandma passed away this past year. And I was talking to her about how I had just met someone and I was super excited. Like it's so deep and vulnerable and intimate. And how I was also like, oh, am I going to be able to open my hand out and receive and accept something that I've been praying for? Something that touches on like all of my patterns and wounds. And it's like, am I going to be able to accept this gift? And she told me, she's like, Kristen, old keys don't open up new doors. So this year is definitely about new keys and new doors and stepping through them and hopefully holding someone's hand along the way. The way that I met this person feels really cool too, because I took a chance. And I want to share the story because I think it's a cute meet story. And a girlfriend of mine who's been on the podcast, Sammy, she and I were at a local restaurant that I absolutely love. Like they have some of the best steak ever. And I saw this cute guy came in. I was like, oh, no ring. He sat diagonally. He brought a book. I was like, cute guy who reads. That's already a plus in my book. And then I was like, okay, cool. And I was wearing all these rings that I'm wearing today. And I was like, Sammy, do I take off my rings? Like, I've got one on my left hand and it's more signifies like my inner union, my inner marriage. And she's like, no, no, no. It looks like a style thing. It looks like, if it was just that finger, I would tell you to take it off. Couldn't find out later on. He was texting his friend. He's like, I don't know. She's just got so many rings on. He told me that later. And then I saw him bless his meal and I was like, that is really dope. Whether it's like completely aligned with my ideology or faith or not, like it's courageous to pray in public like that, especially by yourself, I think too. And I was like, oh, I really like this. And I talk about how I want to meet someone organically. So how can I like drop my handkerchief per se and have him approach me? Because I really wanted him to be the one to initiate the contact. And so Sammy goes to the bathroom. I look at him, smile, look away, eat and smile again, look away. I'm like, okay, I think I gave him enough signs. But I was like so nervous. I felt like a little kid in a way, like I'm on the playground. Sammy and I get up to leave and she goes, he's looking. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But I want to do something. So I go downstairs to my car and she gives me a piece of paper and I'm like scrambling. I was like, I hope he doesn't leave by the time that I write the note, by the time that like I'm going to get her to deliver it. And so I write down like, I love that you blessed your meal. I gave my name and number. I was like, all right, Sammy, here. She's like, me? I'm like, you're engaged. You're safe. I don't ever do this. And so she does. And it was very welcoming. He's like, you made my day. Thanks. I chickened out. I wanted to say something. And he texted me later that day. And then it's been a couple months that this has been like transpiring and unfolding. And we've just been super deep and intimate and vulnerable as fuck, which I think is the gateway to intimacy and like that true like connection that we yearn for so often. And just like fun fact, I was telling him not too long ago that like I was rolling over. I was like, it's a lot better to say goodnight to you on the pillow because I had been listening to a lot of Neville Goddard, like as I'm going to sleep, and he speaks to like acting as if with the things or the person that you want to be. How would they act in the world? To me, it's like a little twist on like sprinkle a little delulu or a manifestation, but I feel like it's all saying the same thing and just like having that faith and really truly believing. And so before I had even met him, I was like, okay, what would I do if if I had a partner? And I'd be like, well, I'd probably tell them good night, babe. And so one night, I think Boudreaux was sleeping in his crate this night. I look to my pillow, empty space. And I'm like, good night, babe. Kind of roll over and just like start listening to Neville again. And so I told him, like, it's a lot better to say good night to you than it is to my pillow. And so that was just kind of neat. If I want a life or a relationship different than what I've had, I have to be different. I have to make new choices. I had to have some necessary ending conversations that weren't the most comfortable. It, they were more courageous. And I feel like if I had left the window open or like that line of communication or the opportunity, like an out in per se, it gives me that option whether I'm conscious of it or not. And I really want to give this one my best shot. And so I am. And let's see. I guess, I was last year at 2025, I did not feel like, whoo, it's a new year. Like, let's get rocking. This year, I have a little more like fire underneath my ass and like a little more perk in my step. And I'm really getting clear and intentional on just some different, like, not necessarily resolutions per se, more of like intentional words. And so I've stumbled and settled on bold faith, creativity, integrity. Am I making choices that are aligned with my intentions? It's like if I want roses to bloom, I can't cuss at the daisies. I need to plant the seed of the rose and then trust the process of its blooming. Oh yeah. One of the differences in this relationship too so far is that it has been the slowest burn buildup of any relationship that I've ever had. Like only seeing each other once, maybe twice a week, maybe having a phone call. Granted, we're texting a lot. But it just feels so much more grounded and safe in my nervous system versus like that butterfly, um, like, what I was used to calling like passion or intensity. And I think that I know CR mentioned, his red flag is mistaking that intensity for passion a lot of times. And so this has definitely been new and a slower build, and I'm really loving it. And I'm curious to see where it will go. Let's see. Yeah, I'm also trying not to future build too much, and there is definitely that piece of me. It's like I want to see you all the time. And the space in between really helps build like that anticipation and excitement. And then also when we're together, it's like more of a savoring, like more of like putting the phone down, more of really being present, being where our boots are, and enjoying one another. I wrote down here in my notes, it's like when you get an answered prayer, you have to show up for it and you have to accept it. And ultimately, I think we have to believe that we're worthy of it. Or we're going to default to like past actions that reinforce a story that we're telling ourselves. And I loved this. I told you, it brought me to my knees. And if you had told me last year that at this time that I would have visited or gone to a church, I don't know if I would have believed you, because the last time that I went to church, besides like a funeral or a wedding, was probably in high school, because I grew up in a town where there was a lot of like condemning and fear based, like motivation kind of style stuff. And that doesn't resonate with me. However, like the Christ consciousness, Jesus teachings do. And so I was like, I'm going to give it a go and go with a dear friend of mine who I just met in Austin, Alita. Beautiful blossoming friendship that I'm super grateful for. And yeah, it's like I was meant to be there. And so I've also been like listening to different sermons out of Dallas from Robert Madu. He's just like so real and funny. And I'm like, can we please use some humor and like be human and authentic, and just authentically messy. And it's just like those uplifting messages. And I started to feel like I was receiving signs and messages that I didn't ask for, because there's definitely been times where I've been on my knees and I'm like, God, I need a sign. And but these I'm like, okay. And how I actually, was on the walk when I had one of them came up that was talking about the necessary endings by Robert and Madu, and I was like, oh, okay. Kind of feeling like what I'm getting nudged or guided or directed to do here. I had just come off of a beautiful evening with this new person that I'm dating. And he, like the next day, I was like, oh, wow, okay, this really feels like a gift. and I'm scared as fuck. And so I was like walking to the coffee shop, getting to get a coffee, tapping on my chest, and like, I am safe. I am safe. I'm not going to fuck this up. I mean, I know I'll make mistakes or have, disappointing whatever, right? Because I'm flawed and human and messy. But I mean, as far as like, this is what I say I want. And then when I think about my 80th birthday, like if I'm going to align with the pathway to get to that version of myself, what do I need to do today? What doors do I need to close? All that stuff. I kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh, but it's talking about faith, bold faith. Um, so I think that Robert Madu mentioned a couple of times that he said, you got to turn down a good opportunity for a God opportunity. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's like amazing things can happen if you live your life true and you walk in the frequency of faith. Like when you know who you are and whose you are and like your vision of victory, like there's a different essence and energetic frequency or magnetism that I think you'll have when you walk with that bold faith. Um, so just interesting to me kind of story of synchronicity. So I go to church for the first time this past Sunday, January 4th, and I'm moved to tears. I and then like there's a couple like 2 or 3, 4 worship different songs that were just really speaking to releasing shame and being love and dancing. And I'm like, I can vibe. I can get down with this. And then the pastor comes out and he's got like this slow drawl and he talks about how his dad was a preacher and then his dad's dad was a preacher and how they were gunslingers too. I was like, all right, my hillbilly outlaw ass might be in the right spot. And but he also opened with like a poem and like would burst into song randomly. I'm like, this is new. And he invited us all down to like pray on our knees, kind of like old school style. And the message was like all about like the heart, like being heart centered, moving from love, having compassion for one another, and also sprinkled in like with little of fasting, like either fasting from social media or fasting from, meat or fasting from, alcohol or something, fasting, choosing a day over the next 21 days to fast from something. And tomorrow I'm actually going to do a liquid fast. Like I'm not going to eat any like solids. I've got stocked up on bone broth and like smoothies and protein and all that stuff. I'm going to give it a go. But I walked down there and I introduced myself to him, and my friend had a question about the fasting and if he recommended it for something that she's going through. And I was like, it's my first time here in a church since high school. And he's like, well, come on back. I was like, I'll be back next Sunday. And so I was like, but I didn't catch your name. And so he's like, Randy. And I was like, cool, Randy, good to meet you. And so I leave. And then like yesterday, I'm just kind of like going on a dive, and I discovered he has a podcast, and I'm listening to it, and his voice is just so nurturing and just comforting. I'm like, I'm going to listen to a couple of these, just get cozy in bed. And then let me look at the name of the group, because I was like, oh, and then they kept talking about being on tour. And I was like, huh? Like like pastors go on tour? Like, is that a thing? I don't know. And then he mentioned the group that he was part of called Phillips, Craig and Dean. And I was like, that sounds so familiar. I'm pretty sure that I listened to that or went to a concert with my mom, like late 90s, early 2000s. And so I'm texting my mom late at night last night. Of course, she doesn't answer till she's asleep. She responds to me today, and she's like, yeah, I found a CD of theirs, and I was like listening to this one song, and I was like, I know, like there's like just a remembrance. You know how songs can do that, how they can like teleport you to a place, and just like, oh wow, I'm back in that memory or that wherever I was. Well, that felt like that. And I'm like, how cool is it? Like what are the odds of like little Kristen discovering the church where that dude is the lead pastor, in Austin, like decades later. I just think that's kind of cool. And so I'm going to invite him to come on the podcast. We'll see. I'm going to go a few more times probably before I drop the invite, because my goal overall is to not be an echo chamber. I want to bring on all kinds of different faith, spiritualities, explore things, because I feel like how do we really know what we believe if we don't do a little self inquiry or seek things? If we just accept what our parents believed, do we really believe it? And that was a very big pivotal turning point in my life whenever my stepdad pulled up a map of religion on the computer. Because I had asked him, like, why aren't we going to church anymore? He's like, you likely only believe what you grew up around, yada, yada, yada. So he pulled up this, dial up internet style on, on the computer screen, and it's like color coded and all that. I'm like, huh. So if that's true for that, for religion, faith, what else is it true for? For me, everything. So I've always been like super curious, and that's definitely something that I value too. So I'm really hoping he says yes. I also want to celebrate and thank you guys again, because I was on the precipice, on the edge of quitting this last year. And I looked at my Spotify Wrapped, and it said that I'm a 2025 most shared show, shared more than 97% of other shows, which is really cool, and brings tears to my eyes, because it's like, yeah. Faith, and just keeping going, even like through the times whenever I was feeling like a tornado. And it just feels like, those little, yes, it is somewhat of an external validation, but it also just like fuels and puts some wood on the fire, or the logs that keep going, or some gas in my tank, or throwing gas on the fire for this again. And I really love the in-person conversations. With the title being Sex, Drugs, and Soul, I don't know if he'll come on or not, but I sure hope so. I'm going to probably ask him towards the end of this month or February. So we'll see. That'd be kind of neat. What else do I got for you? Let me look at my notes again. Oh, I have completely switching gears. Okay, I have a couple speaking of songs that could teleport you. There's this game that I've played before on mushrooms. Complete shift of gears. It's so fun. I think that they can be medicinal in playful settings too. Come for me. I don't care. And so there's a small group of us, like 6 or 8 people. This is 2017, 2018. Story is in my book. However, like the rules of the game are like you have to think of a song and a memory that's attached to that song. And the only caveat is that it has to be an uplifting song. Like we're not going to go down, because intentionality with the shroomies is very important. And so we're gathering around and we're like telling our, stories. And then the other rule is that no matter what the song is, or after the story, everybody has to dance. So it's like this opportunity to like share, open up, be vulnerable, connect with your friends, learn something about them, and be wildly accepted through the expression of dance and play and joy. And so that's just like a fun game that I'm going to give you. I remember like the story, the one that I use is, or did in that instance anyway, is being in junior high with one of my best friends, and my dad dropping us off at the movie theater, and we thought we were the shit. Okay, we were like, hair's blowing in our winds. We're getting out of my dad's Dodge Dually, getting dropped off at Cinema 5 in Mount Pleasant, and probably meeting some boys sneakily. And we want to have our exit song. So our exit song was "Pour Some Sugar on Me" by Def Leppard. And so I told that story. Everybody's like, oh, what? And then, who I was seeing at that time's Coming to America song. He's like, this is rock and roll. This is what I thought America was. And then he plays Joan Jett. And I'm like, what? Like, how have I been dating you for several years and I don't know this about you? And then, someone else is like, this is the song that, first date of her then boyfriend, now husband. And it was a Spanish song, and like didn't know the words, could definitely understand the vibe and like the essence, and just celebrate them in that too. And then one of my friends that was there that had like a rough upbringing and was like really a go-getter, and he's like, I listen to that like Notorious B.I.G. in the shower every morning. And so we played it, like, giving the story and history and context before. So that's just like a fun little story. Do a little dance break or something. Okay, let me look. Maybe I'll just take some of these questions that I was going to ask my guests today. and ask them for myself. Let's see. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. My first shibari experience. Yep. Okay. Actually, I have two experiences. One of them was in October at a play party that I was at. Let me just pull up my notes again. As he was tying me, I instantly felt like my control, like wanting to press against the rope. And I was like, ooh, that's illuminating. Like the desire to, right? The senses were heightened and there was just like a big degree of presence. And there was like some moving and rocking that we did that was very nourishing. But the one that I really want to talk about was because I wanted to work with a woman. I didn't want necessarily for that Eros to come online with a man tying me. So, but I've read and like listened to so many different things and been inspired by so many different posts that I'm like, I want to give this a go. I want to try it out. So I had my first session and, I was like listening to Robert Madu on the way over there. And during the session, there's this moment of finally like leaning back and letting go or like trusting that I'm held. And I had an opportunity to chat with my inner child. In the first one, I skipped over this part because I was like, do I really want to share this? In the first one at that play party, whenever he tied my legs, I was like, I felt safer. I was like, that's interesting. Okay. Noted that I feel safer, probably because of different past traumas or abuse. I feel safer with my legs closed. Huh. Okay. There's something to analyze or look at there. Or accept, feel maybe. So when I go to this second session with this woman, I have a chat with my inner child with that home haircuts tomboy. It's like, I've got you now. You don't have to be so scared. I've got you. And then a few minutes go by and she does something to my feet that it's like they're like tied like a mermaid in a way. And it reminded me of playing mermaids as a kid and like swimming in the pool and playing mermaids. And I was like, yeah, we can play mermaids together. We can play. And it's important and it's safe to play. Maybe I just cleared some energy there with that burp. Yeah, so I feel like I've still been digesting and stuff and want to go back for another round. And even maybe take the partner that I'm dating now, whether he's like, I don't know if I'm ready for the rope. I was like, you can just witness and see that it's not always an erotic experience. Because I think of when you hear a rope, you're like, oh, is it? It can be, but it doesn't have to be. But are both holy? I think so. And that was one of the questions that I think I was going to ask my guest today. Let's see. But it turns out, I guess I am the guest. Okay. So I was going to ask her, like, what's the difference between vulnerability and exposure? And what comes up for me now is, have they earned it? Have they earned your vulnerability? Have they demonstrated enough trust that they can hold it? And I think that Brene Brown, like Ciara mentioned on the last podcast, that, do they have their cup of marbles? That, every time that they check on you or they do something or they do what they say they're going to do, they get a marble in their jar. And like, you want to be vulnerable with people that share those, that have a full thing of marbles. Although I'm like, unless you're me and you totally overshare in a book. But I also feel like people can learn from different stories and yeah, so there's a piece of me that believes that, but I also just feel so called to share a lot of my path. And I have had a super healing journey through openness that I guess now there is a different level of discernment, kind of like earlier. I didn't know if I wanted to share that first piece in the rope journey. And I decided that I did, just sat with it for a second and can always edit it out if I don't want it there. And so, yeah, I think that there's a level of discernment and feeling grounded. But I will say, vulnerability is scary as shit. Like to say what you're really, truly thinking and feeling. I think you can be fearful, or I think it can bring up those things. And like what I've gathered from the last few months of doing that, it's been like a 10 out of 10 connection, even if it's like I can understand where you're coming from with that, or we're giving it our best shot when we're really being true and honest and expressing and vulnerable. I was going to ask her why stillness is often scarier than intensity. I think because if you're going to be sitting still, things might bubble up to the surface. It's so easy to get distracted with all of the external stimuli going on. And with the intensity, it puts your point of focus and awareness on something else, maybe other than, I mean, I guess it stirs up like your feelings and emotions per se too. But I feel like the awareness or point of awareness is like maybe on what that other person is doing to cause the intensity. Maybe in that context, because I'm like, you can feel that intensity. Yeah, but this piece, yeah, I think that, do people really know who they are? Do they want to know who they are? Stillness provides an avenue to that. Do we really allow for it? Maybe there's a reason why people and the culture is so stimulating if it keeps us distracted. I think stillness will connect us to the core of who we are and the essence, and maybe illuminate the fact that we can co-create. And if we're distracted or focused on the intensity rather than the stillness, or like grounded in that, that essence, we're easier to control, or we don't make the decisions that are aligned with our highest good or what we really want. And what do you really want? One thing I don't like is when people complain, and then don't do anything about it to change it or shift it. Like you just want to complain. I get that. I guess you need to vent or something, but what part of you likes it if you're still staying there? Is it because it's predictable and you know it? Is it because it's comfortable? Just something to ponder. Oh, what happens when someone is seen without needing to perform? I think there's an opportunity for some alchemical shit when that happens. At least that's what I've experienced. While being intimate recently, really being seen and valued and cared for, and bursting into tears. I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying right now. And he's like, you're safe. I'm like, it's not that I don't feel safe. He's like, I feel you. And there's like something moving through. I feel the presence of God, even though to me, it's everywhere. But like really feeling it as like a palpable sensation, or like a lightness or an air on my back, or it's interesting. I'm getting closer to wrapping this and then popping on to my confirmed guest. Okay. Oh, this one. What truth am I most devoted to right now? What truth am I most devoted to right now? Acting in alignment with my values. So integrity, the importance of playfulness, highlighting that we have choice and can make decisions. Yeah, what a gift that choice is. Okay, here's one. What makes an experience holy rather than erotic, or are they inseparable? The erotic can definitely be holy. I think that it's presence and intentionality. But if you're looking at life as all sacred or holy, then that includes sex and that includes the erotic. And I think we get it twisted when we separate the two. And that's not to say that like primal or animalistic is not holy. That's holy too. Not just like the slow, sensual lovemaking that like had me vibrating head to toe the next day. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I'm going to go pee and then get ready for my next podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening.